Welcome back to Break the Cycles. My name is Yun, and I'm here today to share with you my greatest adventure and arguably my greatest achievement. I'm not sure if that's sad or good, but here we go. In the summer of 2018, I had the brilliant idea to quit my stable job and ride my motorcycle from Alaska to Argentina. Now, this road trip is often dubbed as the longest road in the world and also sometimes referred to as the greatest road trip in the world. And this is obviously the Pan American Highway. The Pan American Highway starts off in the top of Alaska in Prudhoe Bay and crosses Canada, US, Central America, and all the South American countries, well, most of the South American countries, all the way down to the bottom of Argentina. It spans a total of 30,000 kilometers or 19,000 miles. However, my version will be much longer because I have to go from Washington, D.C. area all the way to the top of Alaska first. When I first told my brilliant idea to my family and friends, it went about as good as it can. Especially in an Asian household, the cultural pushback was pretty significant. You're not really supposed to just not work. There are concerns about dangers in different countries, getting sick on the road, wild animal attack, injuries on the motorcycle, crashing, and of course, also being just completely disconnected from everybody for like a whole year. But the most unexpected response I got was from my dad. But instead of telling me, like, don't go, he told me that he would rather I go to China instead. But unfortunately, back in 2018, where the regulation to ride motorcycles in many of the autonomous regions like Tibet, Xinjiang, and Heilongjiang are constantly changing. So it's not really a realistic option. So back to Alaska to Argentina. The bike of choice for me is the Suzuki dr650. Mainly because, one, it's an older style carbureted single cylinder bike. It's easy to fix, easy to diagnose issues. You don't need any special tools to work on the bike. And they have been making the same bike for the last 20 years. So used parts are readily available. And finally, it was still widely used as a police vehicle in Colombia at the time. And Colombia is a really good halfway point between Mexico and the bottom of Argentina. And in case I need parts for repair, they will have it in stock. Another reason for using the DR650 is that I already have one of these bikes before for some years now. And I've been taking it to Colorado and Utah many times. The fully blacked out bike in the picture is my first DR650. Since I wanted to build a completely different bike for the long haul, I ended up just buying another one to start from scratch. So I picked this bike up in Virginia, and the bike was hardly ever ridden. I mean, it only had like 5,000 miles on it. The first thing I did, strip it down to bare frame. It needed reinforcements to be added and welded on because it's going to be carrying luggage for this extended trip and it needs to be able to handle the extra weight I'm going to be putting on there. And I also did a bunch of upgrades from charging system to clutch to starter and took it out for a test run in Pine Barrens in New Jersey with a couple of friends of mine and then broke a bunch of stuff and then I did more upgrades. I had a year and a half from deciding to do this trip like in January 2017 to leaving in June of 2018. But it surprisingly, the time went by so fast, especially when you're preparing a big trip. And before I knew it, it was like 3 weeks away from my departure. My buddy Fedon threw me and Jeff a final farewell party with a bunch of our car group friends. So this is our last dinner with my car boys. This is Fedon's house.
The guy retired and the young bun.
A week before my departure, I visited Ferran so he could help me out with some of the graphics for my bike. And after I put all the graphics on, my bike was finally ready, but I was not ready. And then, before I know it, there was only one day left.
So I have a lot of these things I haven't packed yet. Trying to find a container for that. Money to our different locations. And yeah. This is the night before departure. It's right now 11:08, and I am not done packing yet. I'm supposed to leave tomorrow morning, and I am stressed. I also need to bring some grease and like the tire mounting lube. I need like small containers to hold them. I also need a detergent that I need small containers to hold, and I don't know where to find them. I'm trying to do some software updates last minute before I leave. Come for Wi-Fi.
The next morning, I was not ready to go, but I knew that I had to leave. If I don't, I would still be there the next day. I did take my good old time though, and I didn't leave until after lunch. And I also didn't go very far the first day. I went 29 miles and stayed in Laurel, Maryland, where Farida got me a hotel as a going away present for my first day. Now on the second day, I got up very early and then left. And my first stop was in Philly. I had lunch with Susan and made a pit stop at Revzilla. Then I hit some traffic, so I took a break in Connecticut, and then finally finished my day in Boston after a very long 434-mile day. And this was my first couch surfing experience. This couple in Boston took me in. They have this place next to the BBQ restaurant. And I have hosted a ton of people on couch surfers before. I just never been a couch surfer myself. So this is the first time. And you can see in the photo that this is my red air mattress for camping and my own sleeping bag. There was actually another couch surfer in the same room where the white bed sheets are at the corner of the photo. I did not expect this on my first couch surfing host. I had, like, in the past when I hosted people, it's basically like a hotel. I give them a room, bed, comforter, they have a whole closet, table, etc. So this was a bit of a culture shock and a bit of a hot mess. But they were very nice. They made some beef jerky for me the next morning to go. And the host itself rode a dual sport KOR, very similar to my bike. And on the third day, I actually stayed in the Boston area because there was actually a couch surfer that I hosted a year before that. He came down to DC for work, and I hosted him. So when I told him I was going to do my trip and I was going to pass by through Boston, he invited me to stay with him for a day. So my second day couch surfing, I had my own room, and they cooked me some dinner, and I had a great day. The next day I got up to Maine, and this is perhaps the most challenging day of the entire trip. So it rained prior to my arrival, and this was like the spot that was closest to where I was that I found an iOverlander. I thought it was a good idea to camp with some shading. Very big mistake. Everything was wet. I couldn't start a fire. I couldn't get enough time to cook anything because there was a billion mosquitoes chasing me and biting me. I ended up just running into my tent after getting bitten like 20 times and just didn't eat anything for the day. This was the most challenging part of the trip because this was the only day I got into my tent and I asked myself the question, what the heck are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why don't you go home? Getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, left my comfy job, and living on the road in a tent. And I thought about going home as I lay there in my tent, and I eventually fell asleep. But next day I woke up, I miraculously forgot all about the discomfort and rode off in excitement to see Mount Washington. But it was still the most toughest day that on the entire trip. It was the only day that I had any doubt. I took off and head up on Mount Washington, and it did not disappoint. The ride up was absolutely beautiful. It was pretty cold at the summit. There was a lot of motorcyclists up on the summit, and the view was definitely worth it. I ended the day in Vermont at a couch surfer. I ended up staying in their unfinished loft where I stayed in my tent in the loft. They served me a wonderful dinner. I did my laundry for the first time, and I got to learn to play some disc golf or frisbee golf. Next day, I rode past Lake Champlain and did my second day of camping at Walter Pratt Forest. The weather was perfect. I used my stove for the first time and had a great experience. Generally, a great experience. And for my second day of camping, it was far superior than the first one. So I was pretty happy about that. On the seventh day, I met up with Jeff at Rochester, preparing to cross the Canadian border together. I hadn't even arrived at Rochester before it started raining. By the time I got to Jeff's house, it was raining pretty steadily and everything was wet. Once we hung everything up to dry, we got some dinner and called it a day. Next time, we explore the Alaskan Highway.